Alright, me friends, as the Leprechaun would say. I'm the Michael Myers fanatic here to review Leprechaun 3. And it says here that Leprechaun 3 is a 1995 American comedy fantasy horror film. It is the third installment and first direct-to-video entry in the Leprechaun series. It's 1995 and the Leprechaun is on his way to Las Vegas. The movie opens up with this pawn shop owner named Gupta. He seems to be Indian, and he is played by Marcelo Tubbert is his name. I believe that's how you pronounce it. This guy walks in the store, and he's carrying a big bag with him. And then Gupta is curious. He says, what's that? And the guy says, oh, it's just a little something I got here. And Gupta says, well, let me give you a hand. And he picks it up and he puts it on the table. But what he doesn't realize is that he's holding the body of the leprechaun. But in this movie, it's a sacred medallion that makes the leprechaun turn to stone when it comes in contact with his body. So anyway, he puts the leprechaun on the table, and the guy tells him, he says, whatever you do, don't take the medallion off of him. And Gupta's like, that's an ugly looking thing. And the guy tells him, he says, don't touch it, don't touch the medallion. And then Gupta tells him, okay, I won't touch it, but he only tells him that to shut him up. As soon as the guy leaves the store, he takes the medallion off of the leprechaun, allowing the leprechaun to become mobile. He can now move and speak and all that stuff. Next thing you know, the leprechaun goes and hides somewhere, and then Gupta looks and he notices the pot of gold. He starts playing with it, and just as always, the leprechaun hates it when you mess with his gold. So the guy, Gupta, takes one, and the leprechaun basically gets mad at him. He bites his ear off or something like that, because he's mad that he took his coin. And then he bites his toe off. What is it with the leprechaun biting people's body parts off? That's weird. And the guy says, well, I'm going to get revenge on him. And he takes the medallion and he puts it in the leprechaun's face. And the leprechaun's like, no, get it away, get it away. Apparently the medallion repels him like a cross repels vampires. He puts 6 bullets into a gun. And I like this. He actually sings a song when he's loading the gun. He says, 1 little, 2 little, 3 little leprechauns, 4 little, 5 little, 6 little leprechauns. I just had to point that out. That was funny when he did that. Because he's putting 6 bullets into the gun. But to no avail, because when he tries to shoot the leprechaun, obviously nothing happens. Because he's a leprechaun. He's demonic. You can't hurt him. Gupta tells the leprechaun, I want to negotiate with you. And the leprechaun says to him, okay, lad, what's the deal? He says, I'll give you the medallion if you give me half of your gold. The leprechaun tells him, okay, you got a deal. But anyway, the leprechaun tells him, okay, you got a deal. And Gupta believes him like an idiot. So the leprechaun takes the medallion before he has a chance to do anything. Next thing you know, he realizes that one of his shillings is missing, as I stated, and he takes a telephone cord and he strangles Gupta, the pawn shop owner, and his life comes to an end. But before Gupta died, he did some research on leprechauns and he found out that their power lies in the gold. If you destroy the gold, you destroy the leprechaun. That's an interesting little fact. But then you come to a guy named Scott, who is a college student who just inherited $23,000. And Scott is played by John Gatton. Scott is driving along the road and he gets out the car and all of a sudden he sees this woman named Tammy. She tells him she's having car trouble. Tammy is portrayed by Lee Armstrong. Got a little bit of a crush on her. She's a good-looking woman. But anyway, here's the thing. She's hitchhiking and she says, "Can you give me a ride to the Lucky Shamrock Casino?" which is a fictional casino that happens to be located in Las Vegas. Here's the thing. Why would you ask a perfect stranger for a ride? That's weird. I don't get that. Then when they get there, he says, "Oh, can I come in the casino, please?" I mean, he's acting like a little kid. So she's probably figuring, well, this guy gave me a ride to the casino. The least I can do is let him come in. She lets him come in. The next thing you know, the leprechaun follows him. That's when the mayhem begins. He starts killing people all over Las Vegas. There was one kill where he took his shillelagh and stabbed somebody in the eye with it because they called him ugly, and he was like, "Beauty is in the eye of the beholder," and he stabbed him in the eye. You get it? You know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. He's trying to be funny. Haha. Next thing you know, he takes coins, puts it in a guy's mouth, and turns the guy into a human slot machine. When you pull down on his arm, coins come out. It's kind of weird. You meet this guy named Mitch, and he's played by Michael Callan. He's basically a dirty old man. He's attracted to younger women, and he owns the casino. He's had a crush on Tammy. Tammy works for him. He happens to acquire the leprechaun's coin, so he says, "I wish I can have Tammy." He gets his wish. She becomes hypnotized. She goes up to his room, and she was about to have sex with him. But apparently the spell wore off, and it was broken by Loretta, who is the assistant of Mitch, and Loretta is played by Caroline Williams. She slams the door, thus breaking the leprechaun's spell. When the spell is broken, Tammy wakes up from her spell and she's like, "How did I get up here? What did you do to me? Oh my goodness, you were about to rape me, even though you never touched me. You were like 5 feet away." But anyway, I don't know how somebody could rape you from 5 feet away, but you have to ask them that. Apparently you could do that now. You don't have to be near the person. But when she leaves the room, actually before she leaves, she knees him in the groin, and then he gets mad and he yells an obscenity at her, and he tells her, "You're fired." Then she goes out of the room crying, "Oh my goodness, I got fired." Anyway, Scott comforts her. He tells her, "Well, let's go report what he tried to do to you." They go to report the crime, or the would-be crime, I should say. This woman is on the TV, and this is courtesy of the leprechaun's magic. And he's looking at the TV, and the woman on TV is like, "Oh, Mitch, I want you." And since Mitch is a dirty old man, he's like, "Yay, a woman." And the leprechaun makes her come through the TV. She comes through. She gets on top of him, and he's thinking he's about to have sex with her, but of course this is, this is evil. This is the leprechaun's power. So the leprechaun shows Mitch that actually the woman is a robot, an evil robot. And the leprechaun says to Mitch, he says, "You'll get what's due when I electrocute you." He does that stupid laugh, and he electrocutes Mitch, and Mitch is dead, obviously. Scott was bitten by the leprechaun, thus making him a leprechaun. But he's a good leprechaun, sort of, if there's any such thing. The guy named Fazio, portrayed by John DeMita, wishes, because now he's in possession of the coin, and he makes a wish, and he says, "I wish to be the greatest magician in the world." Obviously, the leprechaun has to grant his wish, but what he doesn't count on is that the leprechaun makes him part of the magic act, and he puts him in the box, and he saws him in half with a real saw. And everybody's running around, "Oh, blood's everywhere." They're all running out of the casino. He's killing people, as I've stated. He ended up killing Loretta, and it seems that the leprechaun is killing you according to the sins you committed. She wanted the body of a 20-year-old. That's the wish that she made. So he grants her wish, gives her the body of a 20-year-old, but it comes with a price. He takes her body and he waves his hand and he blows her breasts up. They become really big. He did some kind of rhyme, I don't even remember it. He made her breasts all big and swollen, and then he did something where he made her lips really big. And he does this line where he calls her a slut. He says something like, hey, you're such a slut, but what about your butt? And he waves his hand, her butt becomes really big. And then he takes out this umbrella and he's like, it feels like rain. And then her body gets really big and it expands and she's screaming all over the place. And her body explodes. Scott and Tammy figure out that the leprechaun is the cause of all this. So Scott goes back to the pawn shop, finds the leprechaun's pot of gold. First he wants the gold because he's now a leprechaun, but then he resists the temptation and he uses the gold as bait to get the leprechaun. And the leprechaun tells him, he says, no, there is no room for two leprechauns. According to the Irish folklore, they don't like other leprechauns being in their space. The leprechaun kidnaps Tammy after killing all those people, and he tries to cut off her nose. And the good leprechaun, Scott, says to the evil leprechaun, he says, if you cut off her nose, I'll hack off your toes. Okay, this is a lot of rhyming going on. And the leprechaun says, no, don't kill me. We're brothers, me and you. Evil as hell all the way through. That's what he says to him. And he says, don't kill me, we'll share the gold. And Scott is about to agree with the leprechaun, but Tammy reminds him. She says, no, Scott, you're not evil. You're not evil like the leprechaun. And then Scott comes back to his senses and he says, share this. And he sets the gold on fire. But I want to point out before I get to the end of the movie, when Scott was a leprechaun, they had to take him to the hospital because something was wrong with him and his stomach was all wrinkled up. And the funny part was when he was on the operating table, the doctor looked down at him and he said, Scott, I'm sorry you're sick, but I have a very important question to ask you. Do you have insurance? I was like, okay. That's kind of mean. Scott replies to the doctor, being a leprechaun, you know he has to be funny. So he says to the doctor, he says, do you take Green Cross? The two doctors try to steal his money, but I forgot to mention the fact that when Scott made the wish to be at the casino on a lucky streak, he won 100,000. So when the doctors found that out, they went in his pocket while he was on the operating table. And that part kind of made me mad. Like, I got really happy when Scott used his powers and he disposed of the doctors. I know that sounds bad, but they had no business stealing his money. Like, really, he's sick and possibly dying, and the first thing you're going to think about is taking his money? That was stupid. So they got what they deserved. He ended up killing them, and then he goes down to the morgue to fight the leprechaun. And when the leprechaun is like, we'll share the money, then Scott basically says no, and he sets the gold on fire. Now remember what I told you. If you set the gold on fire, then the leprechaun will be on fire, because the gold is connected to the leprechaun, and the leprechaun is connected to the gold. So the leprechaun is basically burning, screaming, no, it hurts, ow, ow. Why wouldn't it hurt? You're on fire, you moron. The leprechaun is now dead. Well, you know, until part 4, which I'll review sometime this week. And Scott and Tammy keep one of his coins. She says to him, you know, we can have anything we want because we got this coin, and this coin grants wishes. And Scott says, I can't think of anything, it's your call. She says to him, I got everything I want. They walk out of the casino in Las Vegas, and they drive off like nothing happened, even though the leprechaun just killed 1 million people in the casino. Leprechaun 3, it was released on June 27th, 1995. I'm the Michael Myers fanatic. I approve this message. Stay tuned for my review of Leprechaun 4.